Well, hello, hello, and this is the final live stream for 2022. I'm actually really excited because I'm trying something new today, even though it's the end of the year. I'm trying a new live stream recording platform. This is Boomcaster. Up until now, I have been using StreamYard. Now, StreamYard is a wonderful live stream program, and I've enjoyed using it. However, Boomcaster is able to do both live streams and record podcast episodes. So next week, I'm going to be recording a few episodes of the podcast on Boomcaster and see if I can't figure out how to do two for one. What we're going to be talking about today is how to get the hustle out of your business for 2023. There's a couple of reasons why this is today's topic. Well, maybe three reasons. Okay. One, I don't know about you, but just about everybody I know who is self employed, as well as everybody who isn't self employed, has experienced 2022 as a very exhausting year for so many reasons that go beyond our scope today. However, one of the topics that I am finding just keeps coming up in a lot of the communities that I'm a part of online is hustle versus anti hustle. There are lots of people out there who are saying if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur or any kind of business that markets online, you got to hustle your way, the whole startup culture. And while I have mad respect for people who are willing to bet on themselves and do whatever it takes to be successful, there are limits to what you can achieve with hustle, hustle, hustle. We're going to talk about this more in detail. But you've also heard people say, what got you here won't get you there. And a lot of people talking about you may be able to hustle your way to your first 10K, 50K, maybe even 100K. But if you are attempting to get beyond that and sustain it, or if you are attempting to leverage your business so that it's highly scalable and will become a multi-million dollar company that perhaps you will sell or hire someone other than you to take over as CEO at some point. You simply cannot get there just by hustling. If you didn't listen to this week's episode of the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast, and you have the chance to do so, either this week or at any time that's convenient for you, I strongly recommend you do. My guest was Jada Selner, and we talked about her brand new book, She Builds. She Builds is all about how to grow a business living a woman's life. One of the reasons that we're going to talk about today why hustle is really kind of up for review as a strategy is because it doesn't work so well for women. And I'll talk about that more in just a few minutes. So there are people that say you got to hustle, hustle, hustle. We've got Shark Tank, we've got Gary Vaynerchuk, we've got a lot of people who've made a lot of money hustling themselves and teaching and leading and guiding and mentoring other people in the hustle mentality. Not surprisingly, the vast majority of them are men. And I'll talk more about that. So, of course, there's going to be some kind of backlash, right? A lot of people are burned out or burning out. A lot of people are struggling with their mental health. And we also know statistically that entrepreneurs are more likely to be challenged with mental health issues than people who are employed by others. So, my concern is that as a self employed person for the last 12 years who works with other self employed people, we are categorically at greater risk for mental health challenges and burnout. And if we happen to be entrepreneurial women, we're at much greater risk. So, if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, is there actually realistically an alternative to hustle? Well, one of the things I think we need to pay attention to is what's being referred to as toxic productivity. Now, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon, but there are all kinds of different entrepreneurs and all kinds of different reasons for becoming an entrepreneur. But there is a significant percentage of entrepreneurs who are overachievers. They never really felt challenged enough and fulfilled enough, and frankly, compensated enough working for other people because they were the superstars in whatever organization they worked for. If you do 10 times more than other people because that's who you are and that's your only speed, you're either go, go, go or no, no, no. You don't calibrate your effort according to what you get in return. You probably should be an entrepreneur. But that sort of personality type, high energy, high ability, high ambition, high effort, high need for risk and stimulation. A lot of these people have ADHD, diagnosed, undiagnosed. You are probably going to at least attempt to hustle your way to success. What's really interesting to me is how many people I have worked with, and I'm sure many, many, many others that I don't know, aren't even satisfied when they do achieve success. Because hustle is a mindset. Hustle is a lifestyle. Hustle can absolutely become an identity, a temperament, a personality type, and people who are really, really into the hustle are surrounding themselves with other people who are really into the hustle, may not have respect or want to have anything to do with people who aren't hustlers. So you kind of get yourself into a little bit of an echo chamber where you think this is the way, and everyone else you surround yourself with thinks this is the way, and it has worked for you. But the question that's maybe not being asked until you reach the stage of burnout is, what is it costing me? What is it costing me to hustle my way to success? In some cases, it's not actually hustle, which is intentional. It's toxic productivity, which is a manifestation oftentimes of trauma, frankly, childhood trauma, family dysfunction growing up, where people literally do not know how to relax, don't feel comfortable unless they're hustling, don't know how to have downtime, don't want it, don't need it, or so they say. And oftentimes these people are really keyed up, hyped up. It's like you're dealing with somebody on crack all the time. And it's really, really hard to get them to look at it with a critical eye because without any doubt, it has produced desired results. What's toxic about it? Typically, inadequate rest, inadequate sleep, inadequate self awareness, inadequate breaks, lack of attention to relationships, lack of attention to a spiritual life, lack of attention to an inner life, self development, personal growth, lack of attention to the needs of the body, mind, and spirit or soul. A lot is sacrificed for success on those terms. And when I said earlier that this tends to be a male dominated model, there's a couple of things that go into that. One, historically, most entrepreneurs are men. And that may be because genetically, maybe a greater percentage of men are risk takers. I don't know if that's true. But what certainly is true historically, at least here in the Western world, is that men tend to be judged by their success, and women tend to be judged by their looks. Now, this has changed in both directions over time, but chances are that's the social conditioning that you got growing up. So if you're a man, you need to be successful. And if you're successful at the expense of your relationships and your health and your well being, it's more okay in your mind because at least you're successful. But if you don't know how to put your phone down on vacation, much less the family dinner, if you're irritable AF, you're keyed up, you're on edge, you're always checking your email, if you're demanding and intolerant and impatient with other people, please don't tell yourself that the hustle mentality isn't taking a toll. You may be the last to know, which is, I think, why the conversation about the anti hustle is timely and important. If you're a female entrepreneur, chances are the majority, if not all, of your mentors are men. Historically, men not only became entrepreneurs because they were tasked with providing for themselves and their families, but because typically men had a woman or women in their lives that they could delegate, offload, outsource the tasks to that weren't immediate revenue generators. Most successful men had secretaries and wives who were doing all the shit work. Most women don't have a secretary or a wife to do their shit work. So the culture of entrepreneurship historically has been what works for a man. And now that more and more women are coming into the entrepreneurial sphere, which I think is fantastic, if most of their mentors have been men, they're going to be indoctrinated into that way of achieving success, which is largely about the hustle and outsourcing or delegating your shit work to other people, typically women. Now, I don't know about you, but as a woman, that doesn't sit so well with me. First of all, I've been culturally conditioned, right along with all the men I'm referring to believe that home, family, social, and spiritual life is my domain. But if I have a business, I'm expected to do all that in addition to the business. And because of this cultural conditioning, women who become self-employed, whether they're solopreneurs or run a huge company, tend to come in to entrepreneurship with two conflicting mindsets. If they're being mentored by men, they're being indoctrinated into the hustle culture and a man's way of achieving success. But typically, they don't have a wife and a secretary to hand off their scut work to. And many women really struggle with hiring any kind of help at all in their business. Again, because we've been culturally conditioned to believe that all the menial work is our responsibility. I used to say when a man would come home from work, this is back when people would leave their house to go to work in larger numbers than they do now. When a man would come home from work, he was done working for the day. But when a woman would come home from work, a married woman with a family, she would be coming home to her second shift, her unpaid second shift. So it's not a level playing field. And it was one of the reasons why I was excited to invite Jada Selner to come and talk with me on the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast about her book, She Builds, because she is a woman who has built a successful company as an entrepreneur, doing it like a woman. What's the difference? What is the anti hustle that she has built her business on and in this book hopes to lead and teach other women to do for themselves? I'm not going to give away the whole thing. You can listen to the podcast episode for that, and you can certainly buy and read her book. I have my own copy. But I think it comes down to two primary things that are the opposite of hustle. And if you stay with me all the way to the end of this live stream today, I'm going to talk briefly about what I've learned this year about hustle and how I'm taking steps in my business and my life to get the hustle out. I'm thinking of it as like Visine, that I don't know what probably toxic chemicals are in there, but you would put drops of Visine in your eyes to get the red out. So I'm thinking of these practices as ways to get the red out of your business, to get the hustle out of your business. And maybe some of the hassle and some of the toxicity and the unhealthiness. Because the bottom line is, most of the things that are being taught about how to grow, how to build, how to scale, how to leverage, are either unethical, unsustainable, or both. And I don't know about you, but I did not start a business that will implode in 3 years. And I think that's exactly what's happened to countless businesses that adopted the hustle culture mentality and all the practices that go with it. So in Jada's book and in her framework of She Builds, she talks a lot about how women need to think differently and lead differently based on love. Most businesses are built on fear. I don't know if you've ever thought about it that way, but first there's the fear of, will we be able to get enough resources together to launch this thing? Whether it's external funding or friends and family. But there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety that goes into starting a business. And then, does anybody want what we're offering? And then it's, will there be enough people who want what we're offering? And then it's, will we be able to afford to hire the kind of help we need now that there's demand? At every stage of your growth, fear is dominating because you have to take risks. You have to deal with uncertainty and doubt. And I don't know about you, but I don't have a crystal ball. Things change. Just this week, I had two of my individual clients who expressed a desire to continue working with me for another 3 months. I was counting on that money. I had plans for it. And both of them had to say, I can't do it at this time because of unexpected events in their lives. So we simply can't predict. We can't predict pandemics. We can't predict contractors or employees, team members who quit. We can't predict events in our personal life that take us away from our business. We can't predict any of those things. And what you can't predict, you can't prevent. You can try to have a plan, but there's a lot of making it up as you go along and going with the flow that goes on in business. You have to be agile. You have to be nimble. You need a plan, but you also need to do a little bobbing and weaving. You need to be able to stop, drop, and roll when circumstances change, because they do. So the two areas that I really got a lot out of from Jada's book is how we really need a support squad. and how we need to create business practices and systems that are sustainable over time. Something I'm really questioning is the launch model, along with many other people. And you see the trends. It seems like everybody thought they needed a digital course, so they created a digital course. And then a bunch of people realized, oh, wow, an astonishingly small percentage of people actually complete them. And a surprising number never open them, no matter how much they cost. So then all of a sudden it was like, now I need to do a membership. Memberships are better because they're regular, predictable income. Have you ever heard of churn? So it's hustle to this, hustle to that, hustle to the next thing. So looking at creating a business that is in alignment with your values, that is leveraging your unique gifts, abilities, and zone of genius, and allowing yourself a support squad of a variety of different people. You may need a therapist or coach. You may need a business advisor. You definitely need an accountant and some sort of legal assistance. I mean, there's just friends. And one of the things I see a lot is that we don't allocate resources for that support squad. So people burn out because they're trying to do everything themselves. They don't think they can afford to hire help. They don't know where to find the help. They don't trust letting someone into their business so that they can see how messy and disorganized it is. And so they stay small. What I've learned this year, partly due to sharing conversation with Jada and reading her book, is that none of what's been taught in the last few years is sustainable over time. If you only intend to be in business for 3 years, make as much as you can and then move on to something else, you can do that. But if you never want to get a job again, never want to be a W-2 employee for someone else again, and want to have a business that you actually enjoy running, that creates predictable, adequate income and profit over time, you have to do things differently, in my opinion. An opinion I happen to share with Jada Selner and many others who have realized that burnout is inevitable when you're attempting to hustle your way to success. Now, don't misunderstand me. Everybody hustles in the beginning. You have to, unless you've got a ton of money given to you by others with no strings attached, or you're a trust fund kid, or you got a big inheritance. I mean, those are obvious exceptions. But you gotta hustle in the beginning because it's just dumb and irresponsible to spend money on things that may not work out, aren't really going to save you time because you have a steep learning curve and you really don't know how to make the best use of them because you're a beginner. There's no shame in that. And luckily, there is a ton of free and low cost resources for people just getting started. A ton. There's so much free information, it's not even funny. So if you're just getting started, you can be scrappy AF and totally DIY and bootstrap things. But once you get to the point where you actually know what you're selling, who you're selling it to, how to market it, how to get a consistent stream of leads that some percentage of which become customers or clients, then you're ready to hire help and you should be building your support squad. Most people who start a business, most women who start a business, don't even know other women who have a business. Most of us don't have entrepreneurial friends. We didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. Like, we literally have no clue. And in the early years, especially, it's very lonely. It's very scary. And being isolated and fearful definitely increase your risk of burnout and failure. So even before you're making real money and you're no longer dreaming that you're going to end up in a van down by the river, build your support network. Build your support squad. Other women are not your competition. I don't care if you are offering the exact same thing they do to the exact same audience. They're not your competition. So we can help, we can support, we can collaborate with and commiserate with other women in our support squad, because trying to do this all by yourself is unnecessary suffering, in my opinion. So lastly, before I go, what I have been doing over the last couple of months is taking advantage of this being a slower time of the year for my type of business and using some of that extra time for more rest, more relaxation, more just daydreaming, staring into space, more reading, more time with friends and family, more time with my dogs, more time with my husband, more time brainstorming for the future. And in addition to that, being ruthless about auditing my business and my life to identify where are the missed opportunities, where are the leaks, where are the things that I have invested money, time, energy, effort, focus, and dollars that simply aren't producing the desired outcome. The sunk cost fallacy is something I pay attention to on a regular basis, and I strongly encourage my clients and people who listen to the podcast and these live streams to do the same, because most of the time we start something thinking it's going to be great. And of course, in the beginning, it's not great because most things take time to determine whether they work or not. But once we're in the habit of doing it without getting results, we tend to keep doing it without getting results. And even though we may be somewhat aware that we're not getting results, we will tell ourselves, well, it takes time to build an audience. It takes time for the algorithm to work. It takes time for the bots on Google to find me and to boost me. And yes, that's true. And at some point, you may need to prune. You may need to eliminate things. And human beings really vary in how comfortable or uncomfortable it is to let things go that they've invested in, that they hoped for. I'm not a hoarder. I find it pretty easy to let go of things, sometimes too easy. But I like to set a timeline and say, I'm going to invest a year, let's say, in growing my Instagram following, or I'm going to invest a couple of years in whatever, or 6 months or a month or whatever. And then make a date with myself on the calendar and really take a good hard look. Is this producing the desired result? What desired result did I have to begin with? Because if you don't know what you're expecting or wanting, it's really, really hard to evaluate what is and isn't working. So I've been going through this process over the last couple of months. I have eliminated many subscriptions, memberships, people I followed either on social media, got their newsletters, read their stuff, listened to their things, bought their stuff. Like I really justified only continuing with things that are actually in alignment with my goals for the coming year, which I also had to get more clear about. And for me, getting the hustle out of my business now to set me up for 2023 is that I have burned out before. I have experienced episodes of major depression that were so severe. I I I wouldn't say my life was endangered, but I was not functioning. And with or without therapy and medication, that is a tough thing to turn around. It is so much better to pay attention to the signs and take appropriate action to avoid it. Burnout and depression can be very closely aligned. So, getting the hustle out of my business now to set me up for greater success in 2023 means eliminating everything that I've been doing that isn't working, no matter how much time, energy, effort, resources I've put into it. And I'm not just chopping things off and pretending they were never there. I'm wrapping them up with a process, especially if they involve other people. Today is the day I closed my Facebook group. I had almost 400 people in it. I grew it over the last couple of years, and I was never really able to give it the love it needed to be successful. So I said no more because either I would have to put another couple of years in of commitment, energy, effort, focus, dollars, or acknowledge that this isn't really where I want to spend my time, in addition to the fact that I wasn't demonstrating an ROI. I pulled out of so many things over the last couple of months. And while it does feel a little scary, because you can't know with 100% certainty that things wouldn't have improved in the future. I just have to take my best guess and act on that. I can always go back. But the three areas of focus for me for the coming year are I'm going all in on an audio first commitment, which is going to mean not only continuing with the podcast, but adding a lot of value to the podcast with new features and some fresh new branding. So wait and see on that. I am making a serious commitment to LinkedIn as my primary social platform, and I'm minimizing all of the others. I am bringing the blog back because, as much as I like the audio first, I am not audio only. And I know that many people who like to listen, maybe even like to listen to me, also to retain the value of what I'm teaching or sharing, they like to have it in written form that they can then go back to and maybe highlight or review again later. So, my priorities for the coming year are an audio first focus, generating both revenue and profit, and reducing the number of commitments that I make and that I maintain so that I can show up fully. Because what I've really realized is the way hustle looked for me was not only working too much, but trying to do everything that everybody else was doing. Literally trying to spread myself out in way too many places, which meant that not only was I working all the time, because you have to generate a lot of activity to show up in all the places, but I wasn't really able to show up in any of the places fully. I was always somewhat distracted, always somewhat preoccupied, and always a little bit anxious because everything was being squeezed in to a very, very busy calendar schedule, business, and life. That's not sustainable. And I don't want to burn out. I don't want you to burn out. So tear a page out of my book. Literally, do not tear a page out of Jada's book if you decide to get it. It's a wonderful book. And here's your takeaway, because you already know this might be informational, educational, maybe even inspirational for you to watch. But if you don't implement anything that I'm saying, I haven't served you, and nothing's going to change in your business and life. Learning is great, action is better. So, what can you take away from this live stream? Number one, do an honest assessment of whether you're hustling. If it serves you to think about where you learned this, do that. Identify people that can be recruited into your support squad or are already there. Show some love to the people who are in your support squad, because oftentimes we take them for granted. Take a good, honest look at your business and where you are spending your time, energy, effort, focus, attention, and dollars. Decide to commit to fewer things in the coming year. Get some practice saying no and not feeling guilty. Do less to go further. Take the hustle out. And put time blocks into your week that allow you to step away. And then there's the more obvious things, but the things that they're like so obvious that we just don't realize how important they are. Get more fun in your life. Get more pleasure, more joy, more delight. Even if it's just snippets here and there, because you got a lot going on. Increase your joy factor. Reward yourself for every little accomplishment, because this is something that people who hustle usually fail to do, and it definitely contributes to toxic productivity and burnout. Celebrate your wins, even the ones that you think don't deserve celebrating, like making that uncomfortable phone call you've been putting off. You've been resisting it, you've been avoiding it, you've been procrastinating on it, and you finally did it. Reward and celebrate. You can't bully your way to success. That's part of the hustle mentality too. And while it may work in the short run, it is unsustainable in the long run. And I want you to be healthy and successful. I think that's a wonderful thing to claim for 2023. And I've given you a couple of suggestions for how to get started. If 2023 is the year that you get serious about making the changes you need to make in your business so that you can be dialed in and leveled up, this might be the time to work with someone like me as a strategist, coach, consultant, and mentor. You can link to my calendar by visiting my website at dianewingertcoaching.com. I'd love to see your name on my calendar. And I want to wish you a very, very happy new year. And I hope that you decide that 2023 is the year that you get the hustle out of your business, bring the joy back in, get the help that you need, and really achieve the success you deserve. That's all for now.